let's talk about something that's probably happened to most of us. You're talking to someone, everything feels like it's going great, and then all of a sudden they just vanish. No text, no explanation, absolutely nothing. Well, today we're going to get into the psychology of ghosting, one of the most confusing and honestly hurtful parts of modern relationships.
You know that feeling, right? You're texting back and forth, maybe you've even been on a couple of dates, and you think things are actually going somewhere. And then, complete radio silence. No call, no, hey, I'm busy, nothing. They've just gone.
Yep, that's what we call ghosting. And look, this isn't just some new, rude thing people do. It's actually a real psychological pattern. It's an act of avoidance that has some very real, very measurable effects on our brains. And if this has happened to you, just know you are in very, very good company. A whopping 91% of singles say they have either ghosted someone or been on the receiving end of it. So yeah, this isn't some rare thing. It's become a nearly universal experience in the dating world.
All right, so to really get a handle on this, we've got to start by looking inside the mind of the person who actually does the disappearing. Why do they do it? Well, the answer usually has a lot less to do with you and a whole lot more to do with what they just can't bring themselves to do.
When you boil it all down, ghosting is really about one thing: avoidance. It is the path of least resistance. The person who ghosts is desperately trying to sidestep all the messy, awkward, and uncomfortable feelings that come with having an honest breakup conversation. In a way, they're basically handing all of their discomfort over to you. So where does this need to avoid things come from? Well, there are a few usual suspects: a deep fear of any kind of confrontation. Sometimes it's plain old emotional immaturity. And then there's the paradox of choice, so many options on dating apps that people start to feel disposable. But a lot of the time, these are all symptoms of something much deeper: our attachment style. Now, this is where it gets really fascinating, because this behavior is often shaped by our very first relationships in life. Someone with an avoidant attachment style can feel completely suffocated by intimacy, so they ghost to get their space back. Someone with an anxious style is so terrified of being abandoned, they might actually ghost first, kind of like a preemptive strike to protect themselves. And if someone has a disorganized style, they can get so emotionally flooded by getting close to someone that just disappearing feels like the only way to cope. So you see, it's often a deeply wired pattern, not just some casual choice they made that morning. So, okay, that's what might be going on with them. But let's flip it. What is happening in your brain when you're the one who gets ghosted? Well, it turns out that pain you're feeling, it's not just in your head, it's neurological. This is honestly one of the most powerful findings in all of neuroscience. Brain scans have shown that social rejection, like being ghosted, lights up the exact same parts of the brain as physical pain. So that awful, gut-wrenching ache you feel in your chest, your brain is processing it like you've been literally physically injured. And this whole experience kicks off a crazy three-part chemical reaction. First, your body gets flooded with cortisol, the main stress hormone, which puts your entire system on high alert. Second, you know that little dopamine hit, that feel-good chemical you got from their texts? That suddenly stops, and it creates this intense withdrawal. And third, the logical part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, gets stuck in this obsessive loop, replaying everything, trying to find an answer that isn't there. And that's the real kicker, isn't it? The lack of an answer. That's what makes ghosting so uniquely painful. It's not just about the rejection itself, it's the ambiguity. It's this unfinished story that your brain just refuses to let go of. So why does our brain do that? Why do we get stuck obsessively replaying every single text, every conversation, desperately trying to solve a puzzle when we're missing half the pieces? Well, the answer lies in this really interesting psychological principle. It's called the Zeigarnik effect, and the story goes, a psychologist in the 1920s noticed that waiters had a perfect memory of all these complex, unpaid orders. But the second the bill was paid, poof, they'd forget everything. Our brains are basically hardwired to obsess over things that are left incomplete. And that is exactly what ghosting does to you. It creates what's called an open cognitive loop. Your brain can't file the relationship away in the completed folder, so it just keeps running in the background, treating the whole thing like a problem it has to solve. And that's the fuel for all that obsessive thinking and self-doubt. Okay, so with all of that on the table, we do need to add a bit of nuance here. Because while most ghosting is about avoiding discomfort, there are some rare but very important situations where cutting off all contact isn't just okay, it's absolutely necessary for your own well-being. And let's be crystal clear about this. If a situation feels toxic, if it's manipulative, or if it's in any way harmful, ghosting is not avoidance. It's self-protection. If someone ignores your boundaries over and over again, or if you feel like your physical or even mental safety is at risk, you do not owe them a long explanation. In those cases, silence isn't weak. Silence is a boundary. It's a survival tool. So, let's say you've been ghosted, and it wasn't a safety issue. How in the world do you move on? Well, it starts when you stop waiting for them to give you closure, and you start creating it for yourself. And here is the absolute truth that you need to hear. Their choice to just disappear says everything about their emotional limitations and almost nothing about your worth. It's a giant flashing sign that they don't have the tools to handle a difficult adult conversation. It is about their baggage, not yours. And maybe this is the most powerful way to reframe the whole thing. You didn't really lose them. You were just shown, in the clearest way possible, who they really are. There's someone who chooses the easy way out over showing basic respect. And that action, or, that lack of action, that's your answer. Their silence is the closure.
Because at the end of the day, when you stop looking for an explanation from someone who wasn't willing to give you one in the first place, you finally find the real closure. And that's the simple, powerful realization that you deserved clear communication, you deserved respect, and you absolutely deserved better all along.